Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here with a video for my favorite things. In today's video, I'm going to be recreating this really awesome slider card that design team member Torico created with the new October 2016 release. We're going to be using the Beast Friends stamp set, and we're going to be creating a fun scene with a couple of the Yetis from the stamp set. So I've went ahead and pre-cut all the pieces we're going to use just to save a little bit of time in the video. And I'm just kind of going through all the pieces that I have here. I have two snowfall pieces that I've cut out. They are both 4 1/4 inches wide. The smallest one is approximately 1 3/8 inches tall, and the larger one is approximately 2 7/8 inches tall. And those are going to be used to create our scene. I also cut out this slider piece here from the interactive birthday cake dynamics because we're going to use that to make one of the Yetis slide out of the card. And then I also cut a slider channel into the largest piece, and that is cut approximately 1 1/2 inches from the bottom area of that piece so that we can attach the Yeti in there and he'll be able to slide in and out from behind the mountains. It's a really fun design and I had so much fun recreating this. So I'm going to be using the slider elements. These are the little plastic discs that you can get from MFT that help to create a slider. And I'm just going to create the slider portion of the card. I like to do this part first, especially because you're going to be using liquid glue and you want to allow this glue to dry completely before you start to assemble pieces of the card. So the first thing I did is I took the slider element and I cut it a little bit shorter than it actually is when you die cut it, just because I didn't have as much space behind my card as the full die. So I just trimmed it down so it would fit perfectly behind that panel. And I put it in behind the channel and attached the little slider element on top of that with some liquid glue. When it fully dried, I flipped it over and added all of my foam adhesive onto the back, making sure that I kept a little channel area for that slider to move back and forth. And then now I'm going to attach the Yeti image to the front of the slider. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking the smaller snow hill here and I'm kind of positioning it to figure out where I want the Yeti to be so I know exactly where I want to adhere him on, because once he's completely dry, he's not going to move anywhere. So we want to make sure we get him on positioned in the right area so that he's going to fit behind those mountains when we create the rest of the card. So while we let that dry, I'm just going to go ahead and finish up the background area. I've already heat embossed with white embossing powder the snowfall background onto this cardstock panel, and I just added a little bit of purple ink to kind of help that snow stand out. And now we're going to go ahead and start to assemble the card now that everything is dry and ready to go. So I'm just removing the foam adhesive from the piece that we've created with the slider portion, and I'm going to adhere it to the bottom area of the card base. And now you can see when I pull on this little tab here, the Yeti slides back and forth on this little channel. It's really fun, and it gets even funner when we start to put the rest of the elements onto the card. So I have a bunch of mountains that I've already cut out. These are from the new Snow-Capped Mountains Dynamics, and I'm just kind of trimming them down to fit into the area. They're a little bit too tall, so I'm just kind of cutting a little bit off the bottom so that they'll fit where I want them. And I have these cut out of 2 different shades of gray ink just to kind of let them contrast on the card design. And now I have the 2 mountains in the background. I need to assemble the mountains onto the front panel, and this is where the little Yeti is going to hide when we don't actually have him slid out. So to add these mountains on, I just went ahead and added some adhesive to the top area of the back of the snow hill, and then I'm also adding a little bit of adhesive to the very bottoms of the mountain pieces. And I'm just kind of positioning them onto the snow hill, and I'm putting it over top of the Yeti to make sure that when I have them positioned on there and they're fully adhered, that Yeti is going to hide perfectly in behind those mountains. And then once I know that I have them positioned properly, I just went ahead and pushed them down so that they were fully adhered. And now I just added some foam adhesive to the back of this panel so I can add it to the card. You just want to keep in mind when you add the foam adhesive that you only put it on the 2 sides in the very bottom of the panel, because you don't want it in the way of the Yeti being able to slide back and forth from behind those mountains. So now I have the bottom panel done. I'm just adding the snow cap pieces to the mountains so that they're finished, and then I can go ahead and create the rest of the scene. So I have the rest of the images that we're going to use in the design already stamped and colored, and I've already die cut them, and I'm just adhering them onto the front of the card. So the second Yeti is going to go in front of the lower mountains, and I'm just adding some presents beside him in the snow. And then of course I added that adorable Santa hat to him as well. And then now when you have the Yeti behind the mountains, it looks like there's just one Yeti on this card design, but then when you pull on that tab, you get that fun surprise of that second Yeti coming out from behind the mountains. I think it is such a great interactive card design, and I love what Torico did with this stamp set and the slider element from the interactive birthday cake dynamics. So the last thing that we need to do is just add our sentiment to the card. So I've cut out a strip of red cardstock and I just stamped the sentiment directly onto that strip with Versamark ink. And now I'm adding some white embossing powder to that strip of cardstock and I'm going to heat emboss it with my heat gun. Once I have it heat embossed, I'm just going to trim down the right end of it and just kind of add a little fishtail banner with my scissors. And then I'm going to adhere this onto the card front and kind of tuck it in behind the mountains and have the end of it kind of sit over top of the mountain. And then just trim it down so it fits on the card front. And then that's going to complete this fun, super interactive Yeti scene card. Thank you so much to Torico for such an awesome inspirational card. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.